Looks like we are live. Let me know if audio is working okay. I think the levels should be where they were on Wednesday. Let's see. There we go. It looks like that is all up. So just a warning, if I have to cancel early today, these are the things that happen to you that you're like, wow, I am getting old. I was getting my cup out from under the cupboard so I could have my iced tea. And see, this is what happened when you have iced tea instead of coffee. And you know how sometimes where you'll move your knee wrong and it pops out of joint? I don't know. Does that happen to other people or am I just a freak? Yeah, that happened. And it was the most horrible, it was absolutely terrible. And I fell. I was only halfway standing up when it happened. I fell and landed on my butt, which would have been better. See, this is why you don't lose weight. It would have been better when my butt was bigger. Did not have enough padding. Oh God, that hurt. So I landed, which screws it because I've got back problems. So I landed on the hard tile on my butt while I finally got my knee back into place. It still hurts. My back hurts. I'm a hot mess. If my back gets worse, this happened just a few minutes ago, maybe half hour ago. If it gets worse and I have to cancel a little early today, we'll know why. Hopefully I'll get distracted and forget that all the things hurt right now. So anyway, yeah, I'm old. So moving on to today's actual live stream. If you are somebody who's here just looking for straight tutorials, that is what Patreon is for as little as $4 a month, you get access to all of my longer tutorials. There are over 300 available immediately when you sign up. My video library, if I did my job right, is listed in the video description, so you can see what content is there, although it's not been updated in like 3 months so there's newer stuff, just because I'm having some issues with my website right now. So I've tried several times and for some reason I can't get that page edited, so that's a thing. But anyway, this is also going to be a little bit different than, it's the same as the last week's critique, but this isn't a chat or like the artist hangout where we chat about everything, because we're going to be focusing on the artwork so we can get through as many of your submissions as possible. Now, when I go through critiquing artwork, it's an opinion. I am just giving you the advice I would give to my own students when they came to me asking for help or where they might make improvements or things that I would change. But it's not like my opinion is the end all. It's your artwork. If you like how it is, keep doing it how it is. That's you. So don't feel like it's a super negative thing if I'm offering you, especially. See, I dusted my office. I should have done that in the daytime because I'm seeing stuff on my desk. I'm like, see, this is what happens when you dust at night. Oh my gosh, it's driving me crazy now that the light is in here. But anyway, sorry, moving on. Art is very subjective. Paint what you like. I'm only offering these tips because you guys have brought them to me asking for advice. So there we go. Anyway, so let's go ahead and pull this one up. This one comes, actually, let me look at who this is from first. This is William Buck. And I've got to pull what he set up about that. Let's go ahead. I'll show you in just a moment. But I had asked him what his goals were for this painting. And I know you can't see it yet. You're going to. 16 by 20 acrylic, completely from imagination, my girl with a pearl earring. I asked what his goals were. He said, just developing a style on the edge of realistic and abstract. Something unique to myself with a quality that others would appreciate. Sadly, my camera sucks and can't make up a lot of the fine details. I posted here mainly curious to see what your thoughts are. Okay. So let's pull this up so you guys can actually see. Oh, nope. This is when I do these critiques, I've got too many windows open and sorry. Let's see. I need to get rid of this. There we go. So here is the painting. This is an acrylic. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that you said that it was somewhere between realism and abstract. So this is it's funny because this is how we started off the critique last week. There is a complete misunderstanding about what abstract is and what impressionism is. I think if that is your goal, you need to understand what that is. Really, now, and I've listed stuff as being abstract when it's not, just because people misunderstand what abstract is, and I know it would get the views as far as people doing a search on YouTube. But if your actual goals are abstract, you need to look up what that is, because if I can look at something and tell what it is, it's not an abstract. Now, pop art. I think that, and the reason that I bring this up, it's not just me being like ridiculous and nitpicking words and whatever. It's because if your goal is actually abstract, you're going to need to change a whole lot of stuff. But if your goal is actually pop art, which is more what this looks like, then I would look at other pop art styles and get an idea of things you like that way. And that's why it's important to, when you list or label your work, or when I ask you guys, like, what is your goal in this? Why it's important for me to know that, because it's hard for me to go, okay, well, if you're going for abstract, you didn't do it. You're like, not at all. But I think it's because a lot of people will list stuff as abstract, and then other people think that means abstract, and then more people think that means that. So I think it's important to know, because it's hard for me to kind of critique or go over that if we're not talking about the same thing. So I guess that's why I'm saying words matter here. It's just me needing to know that we're like on the same page as far as what your goals are. So let's start off. Some of the things I'm really, where's my pen? See, I don't clean. When you clean and organize, you lose all the things. You miss a spot over there where there's some dust, but that's driving me crazy. Anyway, so a couple of things. I'm really liking the harshness of the skin tones. Actually, I guess I can pull a pen up here, but we've got like this. The harsh lines, I actually really do like. I think that gives it, well, it has that very pop art feel. I think the freckles are cute. I like a lot about this. Now, and I'm going to go ahead and start calling it pop art, because that's what you pretty much, I don't know if it was totally your goal, because again, words matter here, but I think that's what we're going for. So yeah, exactly. I can't say your name, I'm apologizing, says whatever genre of work, this is great. Yeah, exactly. It's not like being nitpicky isn't about it makes it good or bad. It makes it so that I understand, so I know what I'm like giving advice on. But a couple of things that I would change. So we've got a certain amount of detail. Like, okay, if we look at the hair, we've got this solid mass of hair off to the side here. I like that. But then we get into the eyes and the eyebrows, and you've got these little individual hairs, which don't work at the best of times. Like, even if you're going for super realistic, we wouldn't put detail quite like that. If you've seen, I did a video not too long ago talking about how to make eyes realistic and getting the eyelashes. Eyelashes and eyebrows are two things you don't want to do to where it looks too uniform. It kind of pulls that movement away from it. So and in this case, you're going for this almost, well, I'm going to keep saying you're going for pop art, but that's what's coming across, even if that's not what you're going for. So what if instead, actually, let me put another layer in here. New layer. This is, so a couple of things that I would do differently to really stay with this look. Let me get that color. Switch out my brushes. I would go more solid on this. You've got solid on other areas. Let's pull that up and play that up then for where her eyelashes go. Instead of giving her this too uniform fence look, and I love that you submitted this, and I thank you for this, because I always talk about the fence eyebrows, and this is what I mean, eyelashes, where things are so defined, too even. That is not what eyelashes look, no matter what your goal is. That is something that I would always avoid on a portrait. There's never a time I've seen that work. I would leave a lot out, honestly, on the bottom. I probably wouldn't even put as much. Now her eyes suddenly fit more with the rest of the piece. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's get rid of that. Oops, I should pay attention to what colors I'm using. I'm doing a half done. Like, this isn't the most amazing work, but like that I'm doing here, not yours. Yours is actually awesome, but just to give you an idea there. And, oh, no, that's not the eraser I want. I've got to make adjustments on a bunch of stuff here today. Oh, well, we've got all kinds of stuff I don't have on there quite right. There we go. Let's push that back down. So that would be one thing. And I'm not saying this is the best example, but, you know, going more solid, now this fits more with the style. Now you can get variation in there too. So you don't have to stay like solid flat like that. We can come through. Do I have this? Yeah. and get some more detail in there. I'm not saying you can't do detail, but to go with what you've got for the rest of her face, it makes more sense and it'll flow a little bit better if you get that. A couple other things. One, her eyebrows. As somebody who has to fill in my eyebrows because I'm being blonde, those of you who are blonde know what I'm talking about. Our eyebrows are like non-existent. Like they're there, you just can't see them. So we have to fill ours in if we want to look like we have any. One of the ongoing challenges is making sure that they're even where they start, that one's not like way in from the other. And that is something here that as somebody who has to do this on a daily basis would be fairly distracting. So I'm going to have two things I'm going to mention or recommend for the eyebrows. One, make them match. See how this one comes in there? This one comes in here. Look at how much farther in this eyebrow is than this. And then this one's at this angle. Like there's a lot of variation there. I would certainly adjust. But I would also, same as the eyebrow or the eyelashes, let's get in, make those a little bit more, go with your style. You've got this pop art style, this more solid look. I'm not making mine match either. I'm like, make them match as I don't make mine. Let's lighten this up a little bit. You can get some variation in, well, that's too much. I'm getting a little too crazy there with that contrast, but not that much contrast. There we go. You can get some variation in there. It doesn't have to be flat, but you've got this flat look with her hair, which I think looks great. So let's get that in these other areas. These were two areas that just stood out as being very like not, and I'm not saying I'm fixing everything for you. I'm saying these, just to give you an idea, I would go a bit more solid so you keep with that style that you've got everywhere else. The one other thing that I would change on this is on her nostrils. There should be no gray in a portrait unless it's a woman where unless you're working in black and white, or it's a woman where she's wearing gray or a man, whoever wants to wear gray makeup. The nostrils having gray in there, definite, like you'll often hear me say color doesn't matter. It does there. We don't want gray in skin tones in most cases unless it's an underpainting. But the other thing is, look how we've got this harsh line on those nostrils. They're very distracting. Like they really pull me in way more than they should. So instead, soften that out. Get rid of the gray and then soften that. You can have a shadow, but not that much. And don't always jump to black for the shadow on the inside of the nose too. It's too much. And it's like, do you really want to draw the attention to those nostrils? Now, I know that you're going from memory. I would still use a reference photo. I change the reference photo because if you're going with this style, I would still do that, but I would have a reference photo. Obviously, I can't judge too much on perspective. Like her mouth is way too wide. Like the perspective of the face is not quite there. I would have a reference photo, whether you're going for super realistic or not. And even if you're going more stylized and changing it, like if you look at animators, go watch a Disney animator. They have models, they have references, they animate that, they give it a more stylized look, but that doesn't mean that you don't use a reference photo. You will hit a point where you've done so many paintings and drawings where you can work from memory and get something that's exactly like super solidifies that style that you're going for. But even then, like we go back to watch a Disney animator. They have reference. They all have reference of some sort in there. Does that mean they copy it exactly? No. You're going to stylize it. But you still want that reference. When you go from memory, things typically go wrong. So, and I'm not saying yours went wrong. This is amazing that yours is, like, it's really good. But you can make it even better if you use that reference photo. And again, that doesn't mean copy it exactly at all. Even if let's say you got a reference photo and the girl had brown eyes and blonde hair, you can change it to this still, but it gives you a better idea of the perspective, because like the placement of her nose, the angles, that like things are, I think you could make it even more awesome if you used that photo. And you can even change the perspective to where she's looking at a different angle from whatever your reference is, but you need something to look at. Now, again, the things that I'm really liking in here, I like your high, especially around her mouth, the way you've done the lighting in this area. I love that. I like that you got that high contrast in there. You might want to do some of that in with her hair. That's kind of optional because this does have a very pop art type feel. I like the balance. I think the flowers look great. That's a cool look in there. Now the flowers capture more of the pop art. Like they capture like a more solidified style, I think, than the subject does. But I like that you've mirrored these little dots on the flower on her, the freckles on her face. I really like that. So you've got a lot going for you. I like the shadow on the earring. I like a whole lot of this, but I do think get yourself a reference photo. And then these eyelashes, I will say for anybody who does a portrait, these type of eyelashes never, there are very few times I'll say something never works. I have never seen eyelashes like this really work because it's not, there's no stylized look where the individual like that. So even let's say you wanted more individual eyelashes. And I know I'm getting all nitpicky and you submitted it, so I'll not feel too guilty. Why is that not, what do I have set wrong here? Oh, that's why. Actually, let's just go back on this. If you take these, connect them, they overlap. It's not this. This will never look like an eyelash, whether it be a cartoon, whether it be pop art, whether it be whatever you want to call it, that you want to not do. So thank you so much for submitting, letting me use this as an example. But see how overlap them. Mine should be more opaque. Overlap them, group them together. And not so straight. Like, see how these are all coming straight out here? Eyelashes would come down on the upper lid. You would curve down over that eye there as they work their way up. There's going to be a curve. They're not going to be that flat, that straight. And again, I know you're going for stylized, but that is one, I just made a hot mess. Don't do what I did. That doesn't look good either, but you get the idea of what I mean there. I'm being sloppy, but where you start grouping things together, and they overlap a little bit. They curve down over that eye. Now, as far as see what I mean there though, where they start grouping instead of this look, that is what we want to avoid, those straight lines. Another thing, and yours, actually, you did a good job here. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to undo this enough. I should have done this on another layer. But one of the things I do like is that you have a much more subtle look on the eyelashes on the bottom lid. Good job. That's something that a lot of people miss. They will try to make the bottom lashes as harsh as the upper lid. That doesn't look good. Even occasionally you'll see women advertise or there'll be ads for, what is that? There is, oh, the name is off the top, like, I can't remember it. It's a multi-level marketing and whatever, where they get individuals to try to sell their product, and it is horrible. It's fiber lashes, and it can be done where it looks good. It actually, eye doctors will tell you it has a tendency to cause problems for people because the fibers will during the day fall into your eye. It's kind of not the safest product, but anyway, you'll see these eyelashes where the girls are overdoing it, and it's funny because they almost always push it to the point where they then look like they have tarantula eyes. Ladies, that never looks good, ever. But those ones, a lot of times they'll do the really heavy upper eye and then show you again how good it is and do it on the bottom lid. That doesn't... See, I think those advertisings are hurting artists because they'll look at it and go, yeah, that's normal. No, it's not. It's not normal. Your eye, like what you've got here is more what you would see, where it's just more subtle on the bottom, longer and darker on the top. So good job there too. But yeah, those would be my tips, a few tips on that. And without having a reference photo, I can only judge so much. I typically would not go that bright on the whites of that. Actually, you know, one thing too, I do want to mention, you have pink that comes in a really odd location here. You would have the pink on the inside. It's almost like you started to get the red of the eyes. If you're going to do that, I would pull that out, clean that up. That's not, the pink here is correct. Here doesn't look quite right. If you're going to pull pink in the eye, pull pink. The pink would be throughout. It wouldn't just be in those little locations. You can do that, or you can do, if you want to add that shadow, whoops, that's going to be way too dark. It would be more all over, not just in these. This doesn't make sense on why it's just in those corners. So it's kind of a one or the other. Now that's obviously a bit extreme, but this I would completely, I would recommend if you're going to do the whites, because we are going for like that not realistic style. So where I normally would be like, don't make the whites of the eyes white. In your case, whoops, that's not right. In your case, I'll just get rid of that. This pink here just doesn't, I like your shadow. I like this definite shadow. And actually that definite shadow is more what I would do for the eyelashes. I like that. But if you're going to do the whites and keep them white, just because it has that cartoony feel. Just go for it. I wouldn't try to put the pink on the edges is a little unneeded. But yeah, so I hope that helps. It's really cool. Use a reference photo. Still keep stylized. I'm not saying copy that reference photo exactly, but just to get your perspectives a little bit more in there. And then those eyelashes are a big one. Nostrils, obviously. And yeah. Okay. So next we have, these were all submitted over at MeWe. And thank you again, William. So we've got a little deer. This is from Lisa's art. Let's save this so we can pull it in there. Said, I can't find the reference photo anymore. That's a hard time. It's so hard for me to judge when I don't have a reference photo. So you're not going to get as good of a critique without me like being able to really compare. Was created with Polychromos, mixed media. This is about a 5x8. My goal is photorealistic. Looking back, I would soften the fur in some areas without strong detail, but how can I achieve this? It's really cute. Actually, without the reference photo, not a whole lot different. Not a lot I can advise on with, oh, hold on, I've got, everything is in the wrong place right now. Give me 1 second, we'll pull this over. I've got a couple things I would do. One, to make this more rich, I would certainly pull in some magentas. If I'm ever using tans and it has that orangey brown feel, I will almost always bring in magentas. And see, I don't have the reference photo, but I can almost guarantee you the fur around the neck and the fur around the face is not as defined as what you have. I'm guessing, so I'm not really going to do much editing wise. We're just going to kind of take a look at it on its own. There we go. Here we go. This is really cute. So let's start off with some of the great things. This highlight, oh, I love his butt highlight. Those are not things you should say in public. But that looks great. I like the angle. I like a lot about this. The main thing that I'm seeing, one, that highlight, that square, too much. Calm that down. I would probably, actually I lied. I am going to do something to it. Let's see if I can remember to do new layers on stuff today. Now, first of all, this is being what, like your contrasts and such are not quite right. So let's go ahead and adjust that because I have a feeling this is an issue of the photograph. If it's not, that is what I would do. I would almost always hype up contrast. So that's going to be my first thing, is to hype up that contrast. Now, I would pull in a little bit with magentas or like Caput Mortem. If you're using colored pencils, Polychromos, their Caput Mortem color. I'm not saying that right. I know. And I'm never going to remember how to properly say it. I would pull those in there. So you've got these more rich kind of reddish purpley colors or magentas in there. It just adds a lot, I think. But the other thing, oops, let's go to you. That highlight, whoops, what do I have? Apparently not the right thing. Click the right thing, click it. And not the right thing again. There we go. So the highlight, pull in a bluish tint. Too much, I'm gonna drop that opacity way down. Kind of round that out. And then you can get your brightest highlight on top of that. But something a little bit more subtle that's not as, there's a square. Like soften that out and round it out. Now his eye looks so much glassier. So that would be one change. The other thing, as we look at the detailing you've got around the face, is too much. You don't need that much detail. When you've got a subject with really short fur, don't try to force in detail that you don't necessarily need that harsh, because it makes the fur now look like he's kind of got long fur and it's wet or plastered down. Same thing on the neck. And I don't have the reference photo, but usually the neck is going to be really short too, the front of the neck right there. Usually, I wish I had the reference photo, but those would be some adjustments. It's in this area, the back of this ear, you shouldn't see any of that detail. And I get that you're going for photorealism, but that sometimes means leaving detail out. It means softening things. And I think you're aware of that. You said that in the comment. Not adding as much. The inside of this ear, That's fine. It's the back of this ear should be nearly solid. I mean, you're going to have some general lights and darks, but not that level of detail. We've got too much detail there, too much detailing in around the face. I would soften that out. And typically what you're going to do is get a hint of fur. You'll have a few brush strokes. I'm not saying it's going to be perfectly smooth. We don't want this to look like just a plastic sculpture, but you are going to have more solid. I'm trying to think, do I have anything in here that would be helpful with that? What things have I done lately that have the hint of fur? I'm trying to think. This may be a waste of time for me to look at because actually, the cheetah. Let's look at him. Where do we have you? So let's pull you in. That's not what I meant to do. Don't pull you in on top of the deer. Okay. He does have longer fur here, but like here, look how some of this is more solid. And then here where it gets really short, I've got a few strands, but not that many. And even there is longer than it would be on the deer's head. So maybe that's not the best example. But you can get a few little individual strands without trying to put all of them in. If you try to put all of them in, it tends to look more wiry. Do you have a better example of that? I'm trying to think something with shorter fur. Maybe this cat. Let's find out. Kinda. I mean, look at the nose here. It's more solid in some of these where it's really dark. You've got the hint of fur without trying to force in harsh, definite fur. Just a few strands is likely all you need in many cases. When you try to overdo it, it's too much. It looks too clumpy, I guess. And it's funny because this fur in here on the body looks perfect to me. I would adjust this. Let's pull you down. Actually, I should probably just get rid of you because you are going to make my life harder later. I would define better. A little bit more. What brush do I have? That should probably work. Get some definition on that leg because right now it's blending in too much. Even if your reference photo doesn't have it, and that's where as an artist you have to come in and go, you know what? Even if it's not on the photo, it'll look better and make more sense if I define some stuff a little bit more. So pulling that in just to better define a few areas, even in here. Come back through with this reddish color. Just define, you got some of it in some of these areas, but define that a bit more. We've got this foot there. So those would be a couple of changes I would do. Soften the face out way. And when you said how would you do that, you weren't sure how to soften it. I would take the Faber-Castell Perfection Eraser and erase lightly. I mean lightly. Lift up a lot of the detailing around. Using my finger doesn't help you in this area. Soften a lot of this, lift some so it's not as defined. And I know you put a ton, especially the ear, I know you put a ton of detail into this, but I would put a little bit, I would lift some of that and then just go a little bit more solid with those few strands like what the cat had, where you can see the hint of fur. It's obviously furry there, just not that defined. The rest of it, I would leave it defined. Actually, I would define that leg a little bit more. I would leave it that defined, but in these areas, that fur is shorter, so trying to force in detail where you don't need it, you made more work for yourself that way, and it'll look better if we remove some. Okay. Next, we have... This is Elaine Morrish that I used Polychromos on 6x9 gray pastel mat. Used multiple reference pictures from Pixabay. My goal was to create an appealing composition along with making sure my values are correct. I don't really have, like, is this coming up on the screen well? And so you guys can see this. I don't have a lot where I'm like, I would change this or change that. Hype up contrast maybe a little bit more, a little like, see, I don't have your reference photo again, but actually, let's go ahead and save it. Couple things. I always say I'm not going to change stuff, and then I'll look at it a little bit longer. I'm like, okay, I can find something. Here we go. Okay. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to remember to make a new layer again. So it's easier to remove when I change my mind. I'm just going to take a bit lighter than what's there. Pull those brights up a little bit more. Give it a little bit, like your edges are really defined, but I feel like we're missing a little bit more inside the flower to balance that out. We know I like contrast, but like these lines are so harsh between the light and the dark. Let's get some lights in here too. And that's about it. I mean, other than that, I normally would always hype up contrast. Let's see what happens if we do. So what I like to do, if I'm not sure if I want more contrast, is just mess with it in a photo editor. Find out before you make the change. Oops. Brightness, probably not there. Contrast, yeah, I would definitely go a bit darker. Keep your lights where they are, but go a little bit darker would be probably, I would probably tone this down. This line is like really harsh, and for some reason my eye is being drawn just right there. So I'd probably soften that so it wasn't quite so dark. But other than that, yeah, contrast as always, and I pull a little bit more of a highlight in the center there. Close. Next. Very pretty though, very, very pretty. I love that combination of gray with that little bit of color. Oh, you did have a reference photo. Okay. No, actually that shows right there. See how this is not quite so harsh? That transition is just, yours is a lot closer together, but it's like super bright, super dark. The line is very defined on yours. So that would be the main thing. I would tone that down a little bit. Yeah, that would really be my main thing. I would probably hype up you know me and my contrast, and that's personal preference there. But this line is just too light, straight line. It's almost striped instead of being softer. So I wouldn't go quite so dark right in here. Very pretty. Now we have Ziga. This project I'm most proud of and would love to hear your feedback so I can improve in the future. The painting is in acrylics on a Frederick's Blue label. Nice choice. 16 by 20 inch canvas. I'll also use the airbrush a bit. Thanks for everything. You're an amazing teacher. Oh, thank you. And the reference photo from Pixabay. Second time I painted a human figure, so there's still a lot to learn. Wow. I wish my second time looked like that of painting people, because it did not. Okay, this is awesome. Let's save this. That's coming down as an XML. Let me now open. Yeah, that's okay. I don't need the reference photo because I don't really have much to critique on the portrait side of things. I think yours looks great there. Let's just pull this in. Okay, so my first bit of advice, crop your photo. Like, it is so awesome, and it's at an angle and it's not cropped. And I've talked about this before, when we get I don't need this here. When we take photos of stuff that is dark, it is hard to get a good photo. So what you want to do is try it in different areas of the house. For me, I've got this really long hallway. I've got ambient light that comes from the office and a soft frosted glass, like window kind of off to the side. But other than that, it does not get a lot of light. And I use a wide frame camera so that I can get better. I can take photos kind of in the dark, and it avoids the glare for me. I found the perfect location in my house for that. It took a while to find it. And sometimes that doesn't even work. So you've got to take photos in a lot of areas. What's happening right now? This is extremely skewed. Look at, like, when we come down there, look at how this is coming in like that. So that is going to be very deceiving. I mean, I've done this long enough. I know yours is awesome. But with the viewer, when you post online somewhere, take the extra time and get a good photo of that. This painting is amazing. You need a good photo of it. This is print worthy. This is awesome. I want to show you the difference it'll make in skewing a painting if you were straight on versus at an angle. And this is probably my most extreme example, but you get the idea. I have to pick about something because this painting has not much for me to give advice on. Let's see, what do I want? Yes, you. Where are these portraits? It's kind of organized. Okay, I want to show you this angle and this angle. Now this photo looks awesome. That's a really cool photo as far as like making a thumbnail or promoting, like you see the paints, the paintbrushes. If you are going to take your photo so it's not like straight on perfect, stage it like this versus being like not really staged, like actually stage it. But look at his head here. Look at it straight on. Completely different shape when you come at an angle. He almost doesn't even look the same. So when you're at an angle like this is distorting things quite a bit more than you realize. Now, again, this is more extreme, but look at that. That is crazy, the difference of taking a photo straight on versus even at a slight angle will make a difference. It's actually one of the reasons I hung it, but I still need to varnish it, but I can't varnish it until I take photos. Don't varnish your painting until you've got your finished photos because it is hard to photograph something that has a gloss. But anyway, the painting of the orcas, I knew it was so minor, but it is enough to slightly skew things. So having your painting at an angle like this does skew it. But let's talk about some really awesome stuff. This area here, I really like this more. Let me see, I could probably pull this off so it gets off screen. If we go to like here as a standalone, that is really strong. That is so striking. What's happening here, the one thing that is a little bit, get back up there. The planet doesn't have enough. I would pull the blues and the magentas and the oranges that you used on her. I'd pull that into the planet because right now that planet is like, it's cool, but it's also taking attention away from her. And you did such an amazing job. Your lighting, your transition between orange to magenta to purple before you hit the blue, that looks amazing. And the planet is more like, my attention is drawn to the planet instead of her. The planet is an important part, I think, of this painting, so I'm glad it's there. I love your background, like so much. This is such an awesome piece. But if you can get that planet to have more of those oranges, so let's say, pull some of these in there. I'm just going to blot this. I'm going to make a horrible mess blotching this in, but it'll give you a loose idea of what I'm talking about. So we've got that. Let's pull some of the more magentas. I'm not getting the texture that you have there. Obviously, you would want to keep your texture. Let's go now into the more purples. Pull some of those in there. Right now, my attention, it's just too like, look at me, where it should be, look at her. Because she's awesome. Oops, let's go a little bit darker than that. Get these colors in this planet too. So it's not so, you don't have to necessarily go that dark, but look at how she now is so much better balanced out by pulling some of this big orange planet there. The other thing I do want to point out too, let's go with, this is, the light coming out here needs to look like it's behind it. Right now it's like here and around here, and it's got this weird gap here that you don't really want. So instead, I would make sure that this looks like it's completely coming from behind the planet all the way when you do that, versus just like, see how, see what I mean here, how it's like just a mushroom kind of shape. A weird mushroom, but mushroom just the same. So that would give you an idea there. I would go ahead and adjust that. You may even want to tone that down too, a little bit on the edges. That works. Just on the, getting, or even a little bit of a glow with the orange tones. you know, play around with it. I would play with it in Photoshop before you. But anyway, that gives you kind of an idea. If you can tone that planet down, it's going to make her stand out more, and she's too awesome not to have her be the main focus here. I think the planet works. It should be there, just not the, like when I walk up, if I were to see this in a gallery and I walk up, I'm just like, woo, planet. I want to look at her and go, wow, that, because she's the feature. She's the amazing part there. She's so good, but really well done. The colors, I can't get over the balance you've got between the oranges. She looks better than your reference photo. The orange to magenta, the dark blue, then the light blue. Your lighting on her is phenomenal. Like, holy crap, amazing. I love the dark purple you've got. You just balance this area out so well. This one is just what I would, the main thing I would adjust would be here. So great work. Okay. Let's go with, who do we have next? And I like, you look at these colors, your oranges on that, I like so much more than the original. Okay. Paul, we all know Paul said, this was created during your live stream for palette knife painting. I used acrylics and it still looks flat, even though I used a liberal amount of paint to create texture. And how do you photograph glossy paintings? I don't. You can see the application of varnish isn't uniform. Okay. I don't have, okay, the varnish, I see what you mean, but like talking about the painting itself, I don't have a whole lot for you on that. This looks awesome because this is what that painting is. And one of the challenges you have, or I have, when I'm looking at, there we go, abstracting. First off, crop your photo. You were here last week. You know I'm going to tell you that. But cropping the photo, let's get rid of this and focus on, well, it's going to be skewed because it's not, look at how I'm having to chop off. If you ever have to crop something and you're like, oh, I'll just crop further in, it's fine, it's straight now, you skewed it. If you've got this outline where the painting isn't quite, like if this line is not matched up exactly with the edge of your canvas, your painting, the photograph is going to be skewed. Slight in this case, but it's still skewed. So just be aware of that. But let's go ahead and, well, I partially chopped this. So shiny paintings, what I was talking about before where I have the hallway. The hallway is fairly dark and I'm using a wide lens camera, or wide frame, full frame camera. God, I don't know words. I'm not a photographer, but it gives you an idea of what I'm talking about there. The reason that the full frame matters and why I keep bringing that up, is it allows, if I'm getting this right, more light into the lens so I can photograph in a darker area without it looking like I photographed in a darker area. And then of course I can use Lightroom to adjust even more. So that is absolutely, that's why how I do it. Even if I haven't put a varnish on, the darker paintings are the hardest because my dark one, I don't have any in here, but the dark ones are the glare, even when it doesn't have a gloss on it. It's just, they're a pain. Heck, I can take a photograph of dark, like flat matte paper and still not quite get the light. Like I have to take it into Lightroom every time. So you're going to need to play around with that. Like I said, in my case, and I know you guys can't see it, this haul is fairly dark. That's where I take one, especially if there's a gloss on it. But you always want to try to take your photos before, I don't know if you varnish. Yeah, you said the varnish was uneven. Take the photo before you varnish, always. And like I said, I keep saying like I said, but it was like I said. And the last one, I've got my painting up here, the marine painting I just finished. That one, it should be varnished before it's above my tank. It's high enough, it's safe for a couple of days, but it's above my reef tank, so salt will end up on that canvas. So I need to make sure that's varnished, but I need to make sure I'm done with the photos first. And that's why I risked it by hanging it, because I wanted to hang everything last night. I didn't fall off the ladder. I fell getting a cup out of a bottom cabinet, though. If you missed the beginning of the live stream, I'm clumsy. But anyway, I always want to get that photo first before varnish. If you are not sure you've got the perfect photo, don't varnish yet. So those are just things to keep in mind there. But the painting itself, as far as like your darks, your lights, yeah, it looks flat. That's what have you seen the original one? Now, you can go thicker with a little bit more contrast and smaller brush strokes. So one thing I will say on yours, most of this, I'm not seeing a lot of brush strokes. I see a few, like right here, that brush stroke looks great. Like I can see some of them, but some of, like this whole area is almost smooth. Like I see where there's a little bit of difference, you can hype that up a little bit more. If you've got more contrast between your light and your dark green, like in here, now I do get that there's a glare there, but because the contrast isn't that high, like they're pretty similar colors, that's why you're not seeing the brushstroke. And with this painting, you want to see those brushstrokes. But again, the way you, I love your black outline on this. You did this, I've painted this painting so many times, so I know that's good. But having more contrast between your lights and your darks where you do your brush strokes will be perfect. Here, I like how this is. Up in this area, these, I can see your brush strokes when I really look for them, but because there's not a lot of contrast between the green, the mid green and the light green, that's why it looks kind of flat. Get more contrast in there between those. But the other, like the way you've got that dark, the lines, this is very pretty. This is very well done. And I know you already varnished it, so you're going to leave it as it is. But in the future, when you're like, this is kind of flat, like in through here, these are all the same green. Get some variation, get a little bit more with the light and a little bit more with the dark. And what I like to do on something like this is start with a mid-range. That way I can go light and dark together, like have a lot of highlights and a lot of shadows on top of my mid-range. Makes it a little bit easier. The other option would be to go with your darkest and then go with one or two a little bit lighter or mid-range lighter and then way, way lighter on top of that. But the point there is that you want more variation. Like here, you can see all these brush strokes really well, like especially right there. Here, it's just more solid is what happened there, but it's still very, very pretty. Okay, next we have Taylor M. This is a 15.5 by 18-inch colored pencil drawing. That's big. I used Faber-Castell Polychromos with brush and pencil titanium white. This was my first time drawing anything with hair or fur. Oh, wow. My main goal was to make it look as realistic as possible. And then I think you had, yeah, you've got your reference photo from Pixabay. We're going to save that and save that. I'm going slow because I'm just looking at it and I'm like, there's something there I'm seeing that, let's see. So this guy is kind of a weird, and I'm just looking at the reference photo. See how it's like really long, skinny? It almost is like why his neck at this angle looks too long and then his little head on top. The photo itself is kind of interesting in that, and it's a great photo. But I might almost pull a little bit more, thicken this up, because I think the angle, you're really seeing more of the front, but it almost doesn't appear that way. His shape is kind of, it's the shape, and I'm looking at I haven't even gotten to your artwork yet. That's one thing when I look at this reference photo, I'm like, that looks odd to me for some reason. But it looks kind of odd in the reference photo, guarantee you it's going to look odd in the artwork. People will just assume I did it wrong. So that is kind of, this line here is a little bit weird. I would probably floof this out a little bit more, or I'd play with that. I don't know. Okay. Even more so here. We've got here, and it looks like this weirdly, like giraffe neck. That's what it looks like to me in the reference photo, like he's part giraffe. And it's the angle of the photo and where it's cropped. So that would be something I would likely adjust a little bit right there, just looking. And again, this isn't to do with your painting. This is the photo as a bit of an odd angle. So there's that. Contrast. That's gonna, we all know where I'm first gonna go with this. Look at how you've got the lights. I would go a little bit lighter because okay, so here you're actually very similar to the original, but see how he's against the light background? Because he's against, hold on, I can't see this. Let me pull this back. No, this is not, Shayna, going to be the last critique video. I'm going to do a series of these. We're also going to do one where I can critique your YouTube channels, because I've had some requests for that, and websites. So we'll take a look at those too. So going back to the drawing, your drawing is pretty, like, really accurate there. This is actually a good example too. Earlier we were talking about putting more detail than it needs. You did a great job here keeping this very, very simple. But I would, as always, hype up the contrast a bit. And part of this, whoops, that didn't work. Here. Oh no, it did work. I'm just dumb. I'm paying attention. Part of the reason that this one looks like it has higher contrast, you're pretty close, but it looks like it because, mainly because you're a light background, and so it makes this look darker, the fur look darker. Yours is the same, but you're against the dark background, and it's so similar. I would make your brights brighter on yours. So that would be, I would, one, pull this neck out so he doesn't have the giraffe neck that he has in that photo. Sometimes you will get a photo, and it doesn't matter how, like, this is an awesome photo. I get why you chose this. This is gorgeous. But the neck being in that position, and however he's turned that's making it look that way, it makes your work look like you missed, like something was left out. So it's just kind of an odd phenomenon. Sometimes you can't copy a photograph exactly, even when you're trying to copy a photograph exactly. I would definitely get the white on this edge, should be way brighter on yours. But look at, if we just do contrast in general, layer, image adjustments, let's go with brightness and contrast. Look what a difference we can make right off the bat. That one thing, just make those darks a little bit darker, make those lights a little bit punchier, and he stands out that much more. So that would be my main thing. And then of course, going through the neck there, make those whites a bit whiter. Here, look at this. Thank you for having a reference photo. My life is easier. Let's see. This, look at on this one. Oops, that's not opaque at all. Look at the shape here on that. You've got it started, but it's kind of more flat, and then it just flat. So round that off. We want to make sure that we're keeping that dimension in there. So this whole area should look like it's a little bit more rounded, and then this comes up. You get highlights that come up this way, and then highlights that really focus in here. Now, it's not even that I'm really changing the shape of his jaw there. A little bit, I pulled it up. But the main thing that's changing is because if you pull these highlights, it changes to where his face looks more, or his chin is more rounded and not so flat. So that would be that. And then pull a lot of highlights, get those highlights in there. And I would still come through and even define highlights more in like little bits in here. And let me pull this out, and I could make a few adjustments, like actual adjustments that will make more sense. Give me a second to undo a million times, because I'm pro at Photoshop and I half do things. You need to be really little. So if we can come through, let's go up a bit more and just pull these out a little bit more with the highlights. I'm just scribbling in here so we can see a little bit more of that in there. Actually, that one would be more white. Define that a bit. I cannot believe this was your first time doing fur. My gosh, you're going to be freaking amazing if you're starting off here. Wow. So see how if we can just start pulling those out, and I would do that all over the place, like really just go through with what's already there. So I'm not having to put in like, it's not that it's so much work because you've already got the detail. You've got everything mapped out. This is the easy part. It's just going through, make those brights a bit brighter. And that's going to make him stand out against that dark background a lot better. Definitely pull these out. This is where I would just floof this out more. Pull that down, and it will completely adjust the giraffe neck that the reference photo had. I'm scribbling just to give you an idea though of what I'm talking about there. So I would continue on with more highlights, define that better, and then adjust that neck a bit so it doesn't look, or a llama. Like that reference photo, he kind of looks like a llama. You copied it exactly. You're good there, but I would make that adjustment as the artist, make yours look even better. Look at a few other reference photos of these guys, just so you can see at different angles how it looks. Like I said, it's correct, but it's still an odd angle just right there. So that would be my advice there. Are my YouTube channels going to include use of the community tab now that eligibility has been lowered and more people have access to it? I didn't realize everyone didn't have access to it, so I'm not sure. I haven't gotten that far. But I'm going to focus on these. Let's see, who's next? We've got, oh my gosh, I've got nothing for you, Leah. You're just showing off. Polychromos on Canson Me 10s, 9x11. I use several reference photos. My goal this year has been to do studies and value compositions. I enjoy the collage live streams and like the collage idea, composition and practice studies. Would love your thoughts on it. That is awesome. Okay. I don't have much. I really don't. Well, of course I love it. It's a collage, like my style collage there. It's kind of hard for me to judge that because that's right. Let's see. You are not what I'm looking for. You are what I'm looking for. And you and you. Those colors are so pleasing. Like the balance, I love this. The branches, this has an overall very, like, I really feel, even though you've got branches that like go off the page like you've got them, which is looks good, I'm pulled in this circle all the way around. I mean, I just keep moving, and this is a big deal in a painting. This is a very good example of keeping the viewer on your piece. The way this flows, the way you've used the branches, I don't know if you did that on purpose, but my gosh, the way you've got these branches and I'm pointing at this, you can't see what I'm pointing at, but that circle motion, like it just really keeps me here. That is wonderful. The only thing I'd really say that's maybe come through, and this is getting nitpicky. Actually, everything I've done today is nitpicky. But I might define a little bit more, clean these up in the feathers, like get that deeper shadow a bit more, because it almost feels like you finished it, just not, it doesn't have as much detail as everywhere else. So maybe a couple more dark lines in here. So complete that out would be pretty much my only thing. That and the highlight on the eye, see how it's right in the middle of the pupil? I would definitely get rid of that. I would rather not have a highlight than have that highlight there. And if you're going to do the highlight, kind of catch the top of the eye more. So that would be my, like, look at the difference when you move that highlight. If it's in the middle of the eye, it looks like a white pupil. If it's up higher, it looks like a highlight. So those would be my adjustments. Just nothing major. The flowers, I love how you've done those. This is really, really nice. Yeah, a little bit more definition on those feathers, a little bit more with the dark, and then I would change where that highlight is on the eye. But that's all I've got for you on that. That is just makes me very like happy to look at it, keeps me moving within that painting, which is a big deal. Okay, got another show off here. Rini, colored pencil on Canson Me 10s. I used a combo of polys, luminance, and Derwent Lightfast. Goals were realism. I had trouble getting the colors as bright as the reference photo. Yeah, if you're using a tinted it looks like you're using a tinted Canson Me 10s, that will do it. Do you have the reference photo? Yeah. Okay, I see what you're doing. Okay. This, let's save that, put these side by side. Which size did you say this is? You did not. The only reason I say is sometimes, like depending on how big this is, I'd be a little bit less critical on edges being like clean, because when you blow it up, it's always not going to look as clean. So that's why I asked that. Let's see. Let's pull these side by side. So I definitely see what you mean by not being able to get the colors as bright. But instead of worrying so much about getting the colors brighter, if your colors ever don't feel bright enough, it's more often than not, make your darks darker. And that would be the case here. Make your darks dark. This is beautiful how it is. So I'm not, darks darker, I'm going to say in this case is a little bit more of a personal preference, because this is very, very pleasing to look at exactly as you have it. But the main difference that I would do if you want things to be darker, I mean, we look at this pumpkin here. Is this showing my mouse? Yeah. So around this area of this pumpkin, look at the shadow right in here. And yours doesn't really have that shadow right there. Look here, I would make these darker, pull more, you've got some of that, but pull more magentas and purples into your pumpkins. More yellow and bright orange when possible into the pumpkins as well, just in this case, because you're saying you wanted it to be, the colors to be as bright. So that would be part of it. You didn't say what color Canson Me-Tens it was, did you? No. So you have to keep in mind, I'm assuming you're using a toned paper. When you use toned paper, your colors are never going to be as rich or as pure as they would be on white paper. Does that mean you shouldn't use toned paper? No, it's just something you need to be aware of. Your brights will never be as bright. They just won't. In contrast, they look like they are because if you're against a darker paper, but that's normal. That is completely normal. If I actually tried, I did a giraffe on, it was like a dark gray Canson Me-Tens. I had a theory that my darks would be darker. No, I would be better off. My color even then would have been more pure on white paper. I've had better results getting darks really dark on white paper. So it does save some time because you can let that paper show through as needed. But that's one thing you just want to be aware of anytime you're using the toned paper. You're going to be muted because these colors are all translucent. Even the opaque ones, or the more opaque, are all semi-translucent. So that color from whatever your background is always going to slightly show through. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It's just something you want to be aware of. But what you can do to make the brights look even darker or brighter, make your darks even darker. Let's go with, this would be better to do in Lightroom, but I'm being super lazy right now. Adjustments, can I do this over here? Will that do it for me? No, that's not doing what I want. Okay, let me pull this into Lightroom. I'll stop being lazy. But I'm so good at lazy. Lightroom. Hopefully I wasn't recently editing any. No, I shouldn't have anything I don't want on here seen. You always wonder because you know it's going to pop up previous photos. Like, what if I took like a weird photo of like my husband flipping off the camera? Actually, I had that on my thing. I don't know where this came, where we got this. While I pull this up, I'll tell this story. I found a photo on I was going through my old phone and I was looking for a different photo. My friend George, Coralfish12G, needed a photo of from one of the Aquashella things I was looking for him. And I never found that photo, but I did find a random photo of my husband. We were apparently playing some kind of a board game. And I had Jessie, if you guys remember Jessie, my Italian Greyhound, one of the two I had. She's sitting, her little head's popped up over the thing, and Matt's got both his hands up like this, flipping the camera off with both hands. And it's like, I need context here. I don't know why I have a photo. So I was like, crap, don't have something like that on here, but because, you know, not family friendly. I'll tell you about it, but I'm not going to show you. It was actually a really funny photo. Jessie's little head popping up over the table, like just on the other side of the table. It was really cute. But anyway, moving on. No one cares. Let's get this done. Critiques. Oh, wow. I pulled that up weirdly fast. Okay. If I pull my blacks down darker, look how much wider that's what's going to make a big difference. Because you can always go darker. Going darker is not the problem. It's getting things light enough. Make your darks darker. Now, let's save this. That is not where I want to save this. Critiques. There we go. And pull that. What do I have going on here? Did I get rid of those, or are they just next? Yeah, they're just next to it. I apparently shrunk everything down. Hold on, I no longer can. Let's get rid of this. I've lost my, there we go. Got you, got you, got you. Not you. See, I'm just hitting the wrong button constantly. It's just one of those days. Okay, so now we have the original with the new one. I didn't make the lights any lighter, but I made the darks darker. Now look how bright the lights look. So if you are ever having a hard time with your art and you're just like, I can't get my brights light enough or rich enough or whatever, make those darks darker. That's going to solve a lot of that problem. Look how much more bold everything looks just by making the darks darker. I did not adjust the highlights. So normally on a lot of these, you'll see me adjust the contrast. Well, that can be a little deceiving because it also makes the brights lighter when I edit that. Here, that was your problem. You couldn't get the brights lighter. What happens if we just darken the darks? There you go. Make those dark. Don't be afraid to get those darks really dark. That will make your brights look that much brighter. Beautiful work. Everybody, you guys, your stuff, everyone who submitted is amazing. Okay, next. Looking at the time, because I definitely want to get to Joseph's today. I don't know how far Joseph's is way down, so we may bump him in front of someone. Okay, we have Natalie. 9x12 colored pencil on Stonehenge. I haven't worked on Stonehenge in a while. I need to do that. Goal is realism. Question. I photoshopped my reference image and pasted the flowers onto the portrait. I feel like it looks like my flowers are cut and pasted onto my drawing. Any tips on how to merge the two photos when using the same paper? Oh, that is a good question. I'm glad you bring that up. Okay, let's save these. This is a really good example. Now, I know your goal is, well, realism doesn't mean you can't see brushstrokes. That's hyperrealism, but I really like, this is an example of that more stylized type sketching. Look at her face. Look at how you can see the pencil strokes. Now, this is not how I personally work, but this is a good example of how that can look amazing. You can see all of these pencil strokes, but she's still got her values and her contrast in here, which is a big deal. And I've talked about this before. Actually, I think it was a recent Patreon lesson. We have a tendency to think that in order for something to be good, our technique has to be perfect, our brushstroke has to be perfect. No, it can be realism and be sketchy and loose and still look really good if you've got your values correct. Light's light enough, dark's dark enough. If you manage that, then you still have that realism. That is awesome. So I just wanted to zoom in because look at how grainy and gritty this is. And you guys know I'm always, for my own work, and that's personal preference, I avoid that. But I know a lot of artists who will intentionally leave these pencil strokes. It works. This is a good example of that working and this still being beautiful. Okay, so itchy nose. Moving on. Let's shrink you back to where you were. I don't even remember where you were. We'll go 60%. So a couple things here. One, you are missing the values on the flower. Your darks are not dark enough. We've got a lot of these darker, look how dark that should be. That is like, that's Caput Mortem pretty much. Yours is light pink. So that's going to be a big difference where it really doesn't feel the same. The other thing that if your work does not look like it's a part of the scene, or you're mixing color. I've apparently had enough for the day. If you're doing these collages and it's feeling like it's not a part of the same scene, it's because you're not mixing enough of the different elements. So in this case, the pinks of the flowers need to be more in her skin, or some of the cream tones from her skin or the browns from her hair need to be pulled into those flowers. They are a little bit, not enough. You want to bring that together a little bit more. Now, I do get, because your background is white, why you would leave so much of the white on the flower. So that's good, but I would still pull more in, whether that be get more of these pinks, because her skin has more of the oranges. I would pull more pinks in this case. Even though her reference photo is more of the orangey tone, I would still make it, go ahead and cool that off, bring it more towards the pinks a little bit. And I don't mean give her pink skin. I'm just saying pull more pinks instead of being so orangey. I don't know if I can do that easily here. I don't want to pull it in Photoshop again because the whole, lazy. Let's see, hue, saturation. I can pull her, well, not that way. A little bit more pink. I'm not saying pink, but look at the difference just a little bit to make it look like she goes in with those flowers, like those are a part of the scene. And then the other thing, again, would be darken these up. Get some of the darks from her hair into the colors of the flowers, those browns. Pull that in there. Bring those together. And then an additional thing you could do, take like the deep magenta purpley tones, pull some of those into the flowers and into her hair. So you're introducing a color that is neither on the reference photo or the artwork, but you're going to use it both, or let's try that again. It's neither on her or the flowers in your reference photo, but you're going to take that one color, that purple or magenta, I would go with magenta, and you're going to put it in her hair, you're going to put it in the flowers, you're going to put a little bit in her skin. You're taking this color that is in none of your reference photos and you're introducing it into the artwork, but you're introducing it on all the elements of the artwork other than the background, so that they all kind of mush together a little bit. Joseph, you do so much work for everybody. We will let you skip in line. If we were all having a hot dog lunch, no, I like hot dogs. That's not true. I'm a pig. if we were all having a hot dog lunch and there was a line, I'm pretty sure everyone would let you go first because you do so much for the art group. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, I would take a magenta-ish purple, something like that, and introduce that into her hair, a little bit into her skin, into the flowers. That's going to help bring everything like they feel like they're a part of the same scene because you're using that same color palette right here. You're sort of using the same color palette, not enough. So that would be my tip for you there. Hope that helps. This is beautiful though. I really like that design, the concept layout. See what happens when I have herbal tea instead of coffee. I'm trying to cut back on the coffee because I made myself sick. Like if you remember the headache I had a couple weeks ago, yeah, it was bad. So herbal tea it is. It is not the same. Okay, we have Julie. Graphite drawing of this kitten on 12x9 Arches hot press watercolor paper. Was going for realism. Would love to know what you think. And reference? Yay, reference. Okay. We're not going to save. Can we save? There we go. I should hit the right button. Turns out that helps. Okay. And nope, I need to do you, and then you, and then you. Nope, wrong button again. Stop hitting the wrong button. Okay, so first I want to talk about the reference photo. This reference photo is so overexposed with the white. What makes for a good photo, not always the best with artwork. If I were going to do this one myself, that specific kitten, I would probably do it with black ink and black and white ink, like something really harsh because he's harsh. So I would take brain shut down, black scratchboard. That would be a really good option because it's like you're not doing a ton of shading there. You don't need to because he's really, the whites are so overexposed on that photo. It's a cute photo, but probably wouldn't, like if I'm going to go for super realistic, I probably wouldn't go with that one. I want to see a little bit more, see what I mean? It's like definite white, definite dark, and one mid-range. It's almost 3. So that makes it a little bit more of a challenge. For your reference photo, you use the Arches hot press watercolor paper, which means yours is white, which means this photo is not accurate at all. So that makes it a little bit of a challenge to, let's go layer, duplicate. You want to make sure if the reference photo is not exact, that can auto color. There we go. That's probably closer to what it is. So anyway, my first thing is just be aware that photo is overexposed. Let's see. You did a great, oh, those eyes are gorgeous. This is really well done. Especially now that we changed it, because I'm pretty sure this is more what yours looked like. I would go ahead and get those darks a little bit darker. Now, I would go a little bit more clumpy on some of the fur. You do have clumps, but like in here, we get to where it's a whole lot of individuals. Get them overlapping a little bit more. Like in here, we've got like a clump. I'm being super nitpicky because there's not a whole lot in here. This, soften in the ear. This one, if you went a little bit darker in this area, I guess that'll kind of work. If you went a little bit darker in here, you could make the highlights, the light stand out. But right now, because it's so light, it's not really letting the lights of the ear stand out enough. This isn't the greatest job I'm doing here, but it kind of gives you an idea. If you get those insides darker, and especially if you're going to do, it looks like you came back through on some of this with the eraser to pull out highlights, you can then use your eraser and pull out, whoops, that's not the right turn. Pull out a few more on top of the darks, but because you don't have enough dark underneath, it's not really, if you can get a little bit more dark in the ears, and I'm just half doing this because I'm going through quickly, and I have a whole lot on here. I think your eyes, I like the contrast of your eyes better. You might want to, for the highlight, no, not quite like that. This is too much. A little bit more. Now this is really good. we're missing like a few little things I would probably throw in. Like if you look at around the whiskers, there's little hairs. That needs to be smaller. There's some little hairs that go in a row. Back in here, we're missing the shadow, like the right in between the whiskers. So there's that. Okay, watch this on when you do pet portraits. Look at, you want to make sure that, now this was not a pet portrait. I don't think you said that you were specifically doing for somebody, but things to watch for. Let's say you get hired. See how this comes, oops, that's not the color I want. See how this comes. Why are you defaulting to not the color I want for some reason? Are we hitting that point where, here, why are you staying in black and white? Oh, you know what? This might work for me. No, this is not, this is there. Not here. This one only wants to be black and white. There's some setting on there. I don't know why. I would think that my other layer would have allowed me to be the color that I want. It's set for, that is weird. What are you, whatever. Then we're gonna have to go dark. Look at this angle right in there. Yours, you have, it comes in here. You then would have a big chunk here and it comes here. It's a little bit lighter here. So then your highlight would be more in here and then back out. Watch those little stripes because that's going to change. It looks minor and you can change it if you're not doing a pet portrait. But if you are, like somebody hired you to do their cat, make sure this sort of thing is the same on the reference photo. Watch like here. This needs to curve in here, comes back out. This is small, like it's just one little thing. This comes out not quite so far. Then we've got the black up here. Like little things like that will change. Well, it changes the form a little bit, but slow down a little bit on your drawing because your stripes are kind of not the same. I would definitely make your darks, like look here on the side of his face where I can't actually color anything but gray and it's frustrating. That right there needs to be shaped over here. Oh, look, I can use pink again. This is really dark and comes out this way. And then we've got the line. You're close. And then more defined here. This is really dark right there. So little things like that, start watching your values a bit more. Even though this photo I was saying is kind of overexposed with the whites, you can still get your darks a lot darker. Those would be my tips on that. This is really cute though. Like you did a really good job. I'm getting nitpicky on stuff again. Like here, this is really big. That should be a lot smaller. You should have white. This is white. The stripe only comes here. See what I mean? Like this would be your black area. This would be white. So little things like that are missing on that. I would say slow down and look a little bit closer at the reference photo when you're working. What's going on up there? Yeah, and hard to get white whiskers on a white background. Oh, absolutely. I would have done the same thing you did with making them dark then. Like you're just getting the shadow at that point instead of like trying to make them dark. So yeah, that works. Very cute. I love his eyes are just great work there. Next, we've got Carrie, who, let's say, Eos Love. 7 by 9.5 on pastel mat using pan pastels and colored pencils, was going for realism, but was having issues with moss looking like worms. Oh, he's cute. Okay. Paying attention. No, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. What do I need? You. Come on over. So this is what happens when you're saying you're having a hard time with it looking like, well, this is awesome, by the way. When you're saying you're having a hard time making the moss coming out like worms, this is what happens when you try to force detail that shouldn't be there. So you're making more work for yourself. This is kind of like short fur where you're going to get the hint of a little, Joseph said, didn't someone once compare your style to oily worms? Yes, they did. I'm pretty sure that was a word somebody used for my artwork. We don't know why. I forgot about that, Joseph. Wow. That was a good one. But we'll go over the mossy areas first or talk about that. So you're putting in more detail than you need. If you're going to put in detail, that detail needs to be way smaller. I mean, way smaller. Because you're trying to put in more detail than what you've got space for, really, you end up making that detail too big. Now it looks like worms. Not oily worms like my work, apparently. But that's really a lot to do with it. Simplify it. So instead, I would be focusing on the clumps. So like here, we've got a highlighted area here. Oh, look, my pink works again. Highlighted area here, a clump here. We've got a clump there, another clump there. Pay attention to the clumps, not the individual strands. You've got some of it in there, but those clumps are a bigger deal. And then you can do a few little sketchy lines in there, but I wouldn't try to put them all in there. You don't have enough room to put all of those in there and have that work. If you wanted that level of detail, you need to be like 30 by 40 inches. Then you got room to get that little detail. But when you try to do it on a smaller one, what you end up doing is that detail ends up bigger, and now you got worms. So that is probably that would make the biggest difference for you. You know how when we talk about fur, like the one kitten I brought up earlier where the fur is short on the nose, so we make it more solid and then a few individual strands. That's how I would do moss too. I would not try to force in all of those little bits because that is too much work. And like you said, it makes it hard because it's like they're too thick. That is what's happening there because they need to be a lot thinner to get that look. So instead, you know how this I would do? I would get that mid-range green in there and then dots on top. You're really hitting more dots than lines. Yours are long lines. I don't see any long lines. Even if I were to put that level of detail, I don't see many. There are a couple of long lines, but look, it's dots. Everything are little dots, couple of long lines here and there, but mostly dots. That tiny. And that's how I would go about getting this instead. So that would be a big difference too, is looking at the actual shape. And when there are lines, how long are they? Look how short these are. Actually, I need to be a little bit thinner on that brush. Well, like they're little. There's not a lot of long, like yours are more, you've got a lot of these really long lines. That's a big difference there. Look how short these are versus how long yours are. And then we want more dots, clumps and clusters of dots is going to be more what you want on that. So that's going to be the biggest difference there. Now, as always, I'm not even going to bother erasing that. You get the idea. As always, when it comes to the fur, so one thing on this one in general, I would pull more yellows and oranges into it. The same thing with the fur. Let's get more magentas, a little bit more, not yellows, no yellows on the fur, but magenta and like a deeper brown or maybe even a teeny bit of orange on top of your browns, but get a little bit more color in there. And then you've got your highlights already. Your strands of fur on the face, you're having the same thing happen where you're getting these long lines instead of here where it's these little short ones. So the length of the fur, that's one thing you often hear me talk about, the length of the fur making a big difference. It doesn't need to be exact, but you want the length of the fur to be about the same. That makes the length and the width will make a difference. So those would be some changes there I would make. And then look how much more solid this is. Like this, that's almost like a solid white there. You don't have to try to put in a bunch of fur. Here, more solid. Here, a little bit of a solid gap of white. So you've got it so close. But I would do that. I would pull in, like, look at this orangey bit in here. Get that reddish brown or orangey brown tone in there more. I would warm up a little bit around the body here on the highlight. And then even into the browns in here on the inside of the body, I would pull in a little bit more with the magentas and just get a richer tone in there. But hype up the contrast, the lights on the face so that draws attention there. I like that you did not include green, a bunch of green on the neck. I don't like how in artwork I try to avoid that if I can. Sometimes it calls for it, but I think it looks better that you left that out. So good call there. I would definitely get the darks just a bit darker in parts of the body here, which is going to make the legs stand out and have a little bit more form there. So yeah, dots are your friend. Dots, and just watch the length of the little lines. Thank you, too. That helps a lot. So this would be a good example of what I'm looking for when someone submits a critique or a piece. I can't talk. I'm really tired. A submission. Oh, don't put your leg up, Lisa. You're going to screw your knee up again. Just realize that was up. Those of you who weren't here earlier, I screwed up my knee earlier. Anyway, moving on. No one cares. This is why I always want to know what your goals are, because if I don't know what to pinpoint sometimes. So that's very helpful. Okay, who's next? I'm going to jump down really quick, and we're going to grab Joseph's, because I said I was doing Joseph's this week, and we're just going to go ahead and do that now. So Joseph said, my goal for this painting was not realism, but had it been, what would I have to do differently? Oil over acrylic on hardboard. The browns are slightly more reddish in person. Okay. So, and I wouldn't necessarily try to do Joseph's today, other than I said I was doing Joseph's today last week. I didn't realize he was that far down. So, we're going to bump him in front of the hot dog line. I don't know where the hot dog thing came from. Like, I almost never eat hot dogs. But anyway, moving on. Let's see. Colored Pencil Magazine is here. You guys should subscribe. That is the one magazine I am subscribed to. Best magazine ever. Sometimes I get to write articles for it too. So, there's that. Let's see. So, what's interesting? I love your grass on this, and it's interesting because typically we're going to put the highlight on grass. Like if we're doing a landscapey type thing, we typically will put the highlight in the foreground and then cooler blues and greens in the background. And it creates a bit more depth in your work. So you kind of got the reverse here. It works, but that is just a quick little tip whenever you're doing anything where you want to create that depth, get those warmer tones up front. It's an interesting phenomenon how the warm tones, the yellows, the gold tones, getting those up front and then moving to the cooler blues and greens in the background kind of creates a little bit more depth there. But I do like the way you've done your grass is very, very pretty. Okay, a few things on this. So, oh, this isn't even on. That's why. You're still not on. Hit the right button, Lisa. Okay, I know you said that you had more reds in there. Magenta. Get those magentas in there even more. So we will pull down to here, kind of a reddish color. That'll work. What do I have you set to? Go a little bit smaller. Let me make a few adjustments here before I get into that. So I would hype up some of this a bit more than what you've got. Now, when you're working, I watched you do this on the live stream. This is kind of small, so you don't have a lot of room for tiny, tiny detail. Therefore, don't try to force in tiny detail. You don't need to. So, you've got a highlight on the eye. There's not even a highlight on the photo. That gone. Define those eyes a bit better. If it's a shadow in your photo, let it be a shadow in your artwork. Don't feel like you have to force in detail because you're like, there should be a highlight. You can't see the highlight in the photo. It's too far away. You're not going to see that. So that would certainly be one thing. Watch the shape of the eyes. Round those off. I mean, that's kind of the thing with does or baby deer. You look at them and you're like, those big doe eyes, big deer eyes. Let's get that in there more. Define your darks. That's kind of the thing. Like I'm looking here at that ear needs to be darker. I'm not looking at the detail. I wouldn't even focus too much on the detail. I'm going to focus on where are my general lights and darks. That is going to make a bigger difference. Oh, I'm drawing on that one. What am I doing? I'm fixing the reference photo here. Let's come through and really focus on those areas instead of the little detail. I think that we can sometimes just get too worked up in the detail and we lose the general, get the contrast, get the lights and darks. I should have done another layer on top of this. You know what? I'm going to do that. Let's hit undo 800 times. I'm telling you, this is what happens when I don't have coffee. I mean, I had coffee, just not during the live stream. Undo, 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 undo. Did I hit as many undos as I can do? Probably. Okay, whatever. That's as good as we're going to get. New layer. Okay, there we go. So let's go on top now and start focusing on these. So it's not exact because I already changed the eyes, but whatever. So start really getting these darks in there a lot more. So I know you said it's more red in person. The color isn't as big of a deal to me as the values. Like that light is way too light there. Push that back. We've got this shadow that comes through here. That's a little bit too much. Let's drop that opacity down. Let's darken this up. Darken the face here. So if we can focus more on these values, your lights and your darks, that is going to make your work look more, if you were going for realism, is going to make the biggest difference. Don't worry so much about the detail. Now the spots, that I would certainly have kept. I'm honestly going over them because lazy. So you'll have to forgive me there. But if we can just pay attention, where are those lights and those darks, we can start creating a lot more form on these guys. Like even here. So look at how you're here. There is a white belly, but it's not white in the photo. It's going to be in shadow. You're hardly even going to see that. Push that back. So don't feel like you have to force just because you know there should be detail. Don't force it in the artwork if it's not, if it doesn't need to be there. But really focus on your lights and your darks. This is one of the things, it was on a recent group, I think I did it on a recent group challenge for Patreon. I need to get this WINS group challenge up still. But anyway, we were talking about that, do some small studies where all you can focus on are your lights and your darks. You don't even get to see, you can't do detail, there's no detail, like a little 2x3 inch thing. All you're focusing on are your lights and your darks. Start doing those as exercises, and it will really help you to perfect your realism, or your values, I should say. Getting that detail in there, because that is what's going to make your work start looking more three-dimensional. So same thing, we're going to really focus on the darks. Now this, I don't know that I would have gone with this reference photo because it's hard. That is a hard one to make. See how this little one is looking straight at the camera? That is a hard angle at the best of times, and when it's little and in the distance, that is hard that is hard. You did a great job, but it's hard. So, and I, go for easy, so that's probably why I wouldn't have gone with it. But it's a very odd angle for getting that 3 dimension. So see how I'm not really focusing on detail, I'm focusing on lights and darks. One of the things that really helped me in perfecting that, or I shouldn't say perfecting because that makes it sound like I'm perfect with that. I'm certainly not. But in improving, we'll go with that. In improving values and such, I used to teach at one of those places where the students would drink wine while I stood on stage and taught them to paint. If I couldn't get the painting done in 20 minutes, they weren't going to get it done in 3 hours. So when I designed these paintings, I had to have it done quick, and you had to depend on your values. I don't have time to do detail. There's no time for detail in that with these type of things. So I really focused on just my lights and my darks, and it was such good practice in learning to where to hit those lights and darks in order to make something look realistic without doing detail, because I depended on detail to make things look, more realistic. So to learn to stop doing that and to really focus, but practicing constantly, don't just get those lights and darks in there. See, this isn't detail. This is just the values. You're not seeing all of Joseph's piece? What aren't you seeing? Hold on. What did I? Well, you're not seeing the reference photo. You can see all of Joseph's there. I just kind of scooted it off. He's got them attached in one photo. He sort of made things easier for me, sort of not. So it's all one photo. So we have to slide it over as we work on this one. Let's see. One of the things I like to do when I work on stuff too, I've always got a video camera. I record everything. So there's always a video camera right here. I look at the viewfinder. I'll check up in that and see, are my lights and my darks quite right? That is really helpful because it's all shrunken down. That will really help too. You can see I'm not having to really do much as far as lights go. I'm just making my darks a bit darker. Make those the hooves fade into the grass. Right now, you've got this green glow. I would definitely not get that, get rid of that. So it's in the grass and not cut out and stuck on top. So I'm just going to shade that. So by just adjusting our values. Look at how now they will look so much, and I didn't have to make whites any whiter. And I mean, I could sit here and fuss over this for a while, but that gives you an idea if you can spend a little bit more time on, and I say time, but I saw how long you put into this. You put more into detail than I would have. I would focus more on values, lights and darks. Now, on top of that, I would still come through and get a little bit more like here. If we look at this guy, look at these little hairs. Let's shrink this down. I would put a few little hairs in a few spots, but not too many. So you might come over here and define, like right now mine's just too soft, too solid. So put the hint of a few hairs. I wouldn't put all of them, but you've got a few areas, like a little bit here. We've got a little bit on his rear, a little bit around his tail. So I would put a little bit of detailing as far as like the fur, so it gives you the hint of where that's going, but I wouldn't sit there and like try to detail too much all over the place. So hopefully, let's get rid of the pink. Way too much. Whoop. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. There is, without the highlights, but you can see, well, I had already done some. So, it's not exactly the original, but you get, I would make the eyes bigger, and then don't try to force in those highlights on the eyes. I know they're already filled in on this one, but that will give you a little bit more dimension in your work, and do more than what I just did. That just gets it started to give you an idea. Joseph says, I meant to add both photos in the comments, but you bumped me, and well, sure. Okay. I love the way you did the grass on that, especially. There was just something about that grass I really liked. Okay, let's go back up. Where were we? Rob, I remember your I just did your, you got one of the greeting cards with, oh, I have to show you guys. Actually, we're going to take a quick break. I want to show you, I got them labeled. No, that's not one. This is the one. Hold on, I have to cover it. This one's Joseph's. So the cards that come now on the, I don't want to give you guys Joseph's address unless you want to send him stuff. But I did all of the postcards yesterday, and then the new greeting cards in the envelopes. I'm so happy with how these envelopes looked. So we'll get back to this in a second. Rob just reminded me because I filled his out yesterday. But for the teal tier now on Patreon, you get your card and postcard and a sticker comes in an envelope like that. Again, I'm just trying not to dox Joseph there. So look at Glitch. I love how this came out. But anyway, there's the card. Let's move that before I... these are all stuffed. This one, it didn't have Glitch on this one. That's why I'm not showing you that. But those of you who are getting your September stuff on the teal tier, I stuffed all of them yesterday. So there's the card. We've got the postcard. Actually, that's August. That's not even the right one. I don't know why that's in there. And then the sticker. So those are all got stuffed yesterday, and they will be, I ordered the stamps. They should be here next week, and then I will get them stamped next week, sent out next week. So those are, oops, don't dox Joseph. Those are on their way. It just reminded me because Rob got one of them too. So that's where that whole thing came. If you haven't checked out the new tiers over on Patreon, I've got a whole, like, there's coloring pages now. There's the cards, and your postcard in that case would come in an envelope instead of open. So less chance for damage there. So anyway, kind of cool. I'm excited. Like stupidly so. Okay, so let's focus. Rob, 9x12 colored pencil on pastel mat with a pan pastel background. I love pan pastel background. I have not done one of those in a while. I need to do that. Let's save. And save. And go to the right page. Give me 1 second to get these where they go. Okay. I just took too big of a swallow. There's too much air in there. Joseph said that grass took me around 6 hours off camera. Oh my gosh. That doesn't surprise me. Okay, so colored pencil, pan pastels. First thing I'm going to comment on this, that is a big signature up in the middle of the artwork. Like, lower that to one of the, I know I often say it's not a big deal where the signature is, but I would probably lower that a little bit, like shrink him down here a little bit. Unless that's I don't think that's a watermark. Also, you've got by, Rob. I would remove the by. When you sign your work, you don't need to say by. The signature implies that. So it's kind of like when you have a website and you're like, welcome to Walk Creek Fine Art. I don't need to say welcome. That's implied by me having the website. So I would remove the by. Oddly enough, it's visually appealing in the way your signature is, but you don't need to say by. So I would take by to by and remove, like drop that down a little bit so it's not so much on the subject. I would go into the bottom corner there. Okay. For the bokeh background, the circles, I would soften those just a bit so they're not as defined, and that's just going to help. When you do a bokeh background, usually you want those to be somewhat soft so that your subject is more what's in focus, and it helps to create that dimension. If the circles are really, really harsh, that can, and in this case you've got really high contrast on those, that can sometimes take away from the subject. So I would tone those down a bit, and then let's pull the reference photo up. This is beautiful, by the way. Really pretty. So we've got some stuff on the drawing that I would adjust, like the eye. We can see the eye on the subject here. What do I have you set to? Look at how this is more open instead of down on this. So that would be, you know, watch little things like that will completely change the expression of the subject. And in this case, his eye is just too small. So, if anything, if you're doing a painting of an animal, if you're going to go too big or too small, go too big. You don't want to go too small on the eye. I would definitely, if I couldn't get it perfect, I'm going to go bigger than if I'm even questioning that. So I would definitely get that eye a bit larger. This is, you've got good shading on the nose. Now this is an area, look at how definite that line is. The line can be there, but the contrast with how bright this is in here on the face, I would go closer to what you've got on the body for a lot of this. I would darken a lot of these areas up and around the face so that your brights seem a little bit brighter too. But if we can come back through, let's go with reddish brown will probably work. Drop that opacity. Oh, I'm going to screw up my knee again. Crap. Hold on. Okay, I don't want to twist it. Oh, that's still, it just makes me cringe to think. It was so bad. It was so bad. If you're like, what are you talking about? Beginning of the live stream. Anyway, so nope, I'm going to go a little bit lighter still, kind of an orangey color. I like your detail. I like that you've got the direction of the fur going right. This is great. But I would get a little bit more with the oranges, like make that a bit richer. Almost, actually, I'm wondering if I'd be better off doing this. Go a little bit bigger. I'm trying to make this go a bit faster. Oh, that kind of works. A little bit lighter. Give me a second. I'll adjust this. There we go. Okay. The transition between the spots, you've got some of it. Get a little bit more in there. Between the black and the lighter colors. So it's not just straight black tan. Get black into either magentas or oranges. Pull a little bit more in there. With these colors, this is still really like, there we go. Go a little bit softer. But make that a bit more rich. It's going to make him stand out better against your background. So if we can soften the background a bit and then pull out a little bit more with the color here, I would pull that into the more reddish tones. Now, I realize that it may just be the photo and the way that the reference photo printed, but I still, if ever I'm doing a jaguar, a leopard, cheetah, I'm going to use more of the reds, magentas. No, not reds. Magentas, like reddish purples, oranges, some tans, some browns. But make yours a little bit more rich. You can pull a lot more of these more bold colors in there. Get a bit more depth in there. And I still want to put this the same location that you've got shadows on yours. It's not just put a random orange spot somewhere, but I also will focus a little bit more on between the black and the tan. So it's like black to either magenta and orange and then to your tan. So it's not just straight. And now look how the highlights in here start standing out more because we've got some of these shadows a bit more rich in there. So I'm not going to sit there and do it to all of it, but it gives you an idea if we can pull a little bit more into those values and get more depth. The whites, I believe it looks like you use Touch Up Texture titanium white mixture, probably. I'm guessing if I did it, that's what I would do, and that's how it sometimes comes out. I would come back on top of those whiskers. Notice how you've got white start to finish. Darken some of these too, just a bit. Let's muddy that up a bit. Pull some of these into shadow, and you just take your colored pencil right on top. Actually, it went a little bit darker than I would like to go here. Oh, I should have done this on another layer. Whatever. But get some of these a little bit darker at the base so it's not quite so bold. Like a lot of the whites, they're great highlights, but now you can come, and if you use Touch Up Texture Titanium White Mixture, that is the brush and pencil product. If you use that, that adds tooth to your work. So you're able to just lightly go over it with another color, tone that down a bit. It'll look a lot more natural. Not all of them. Some of it you want to leave bright white, but we also want to get some of those shadows in there. We've got a lot of shading in here. So it seems like on some of these, and I know I'm always talking about contrast. You can tone it down a little bit more than that. You're the reverse where I don't say it often, but a little too much contrast on some of those. We've got the dark around the ear here. That ear is great. And really, like besides the eye, I would adjust the eye. The rest of this is great. Your detail, your fur looks awesome. I love how you did your fur. I would get some of these colors just a bit more rich and possibly tone down the edges, maybe soften the edges on the background, or let's see if I can, this works better in Lightroom, but lazy. See, look how if I just soften, smudge it a bit, it lets you pull, I'm warping it a bit too, but it lets the subject stands out more. It makes that look like it's off in the background, and the subject now is pushed forward. So if you can get your colors a little bit more rich in there, how many times have I said that in the last 5 minutes? A lot. I'm aware. But if you can get those oranges, those magentas in there, a lot more around those spots, and then soften up that background and use pan pastels. So that's an easy thing to do. Smudge those a bit. That should give you a lot more depth in your work overall. Beautiful work. I love, my favorite part though, your fur, getting it going the right direction, about the right length, the way they're clumped. Well done. Okay. The next art critique video, normally I would have said next week. I think I'm taking next Friday off because that's the start of Aquashella. I think I'm just going to take the day and get that done because it's a bit too much. So now you've all been notified. No live stream next Friday because that is Halloween weekend, right? Because that's Aquashella, and I'll be setting up. Whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah, I'm not going to be here next Friday. I was going to do it, and I'm like, I've got too. It's just I'm putting too much on myself at that point. So no live stream Friday. There will be a live stream Wednesday. We're going to be doing our Zombie Snail Halloween, and it'll be a giveaway. So Friday at 8 p.m. But the next critique video will be the following Friday. So November. God, how? Oh, I like the stylized look of this one. I don't have the reference photo anymore. 8x10 pastel board ampersand with Faber-Castell polychromos. So you didn't, wow, I'm like, well, what are your goals? I don't know what your goals are, Eliza, so it makes it a little, and this is Eliza, by the way, that makes it a little bit harder. I keep saying a little bit, stop saying a little. Do you ever get those words that you're randomly like, I'm going to say this 8 million times today? Today, it is a little bit. But we're going to, let's see, pull you up, pull you in. I'm not sure what your goals were. So like, were you going for more realistic, or if you were having a challenge? So when you guys submit your, for the future ones, or if you've already submitted and I haven't gotten to it, go back and edit it. Let me know, like, was there a specific area you were having trouble with too? Because that'll help me to know how to help you. Okay, so let's get you up. This is not a really big photo, so it's a little bit hard to zoom in, but we've got this. This one comes back to, like I was talking about earlier, where you can get that more sketchy look with colored pencil and still make it work. This is nice. So the reason that I'm like, was that your goal though? I don't know. So it makes it hard to judge if I don't know what your goals were on stuff. I like how much orange you put in. There's a little bit of yellow over here. There's some yellow cream color I probably would tone down a little bit because I typically avoid any type of yellow in a portrait where it's fur, except for that one. Who did the monkey? Was it Eos? Somebody did the monkey recently that actually had yellow fur, which threw off my whole theory of there isn't yellow fur. There it is, just not on a dog, unless he got into paint. So I usually will pull that out, but on the flip side, if your goal was just to be more colorful and not super realistic, then the yellow kind of works. So I don't know what your goals were there, so I don't have a lot to advise as far as that goes. The one thing that I can see that I would adjust, you guys already know where this is going. We're going to adjust the contrast, because that will, adjustment, brightness, contrast, hit the right button, Lisa. Look at how much more that's, look at what a difference, just make it even more, make it bolder. That will almost always look better. Make the darks darker, the lights lighter. Now in this case, one of the things I want to point out too, if you are going to let your intentionally, because that is like we had the portrait earlier and it looked great, where you let your pencil strokes show, make sure they're still going in the appropriate direction like we've got here. See how these pencil strokes, they are showing, but they also are going the right direction for the fur. So that gives a pretty cool look. I wouldn't want to be doing a bunch of diagonal or sideways or things that don't go the right direction. I would still move those in that direction. Oh, Cat's Art Picks with the monkey. Yeah, and it was a definite yellow. How much Photoshop was involved in that, or is it that yellow? I don't know. But it was yellow. Threw my whole little rule of no yellow fur off. But anyway. See, and in this case, this makes the yellow stand out even more. If we're going for just super colorful, that yellow works. And if we're going for super colorful, I would even pull the purples, make those purples like way more bold on this. I think I would go higher on that too. I think this is a good piece to have. You'll see those portraits, those pet portraits where it's like all primary and secondary colors, just super bold. This would work for that. And I would play that up even more, honestly. Well done. Cool angle. Cool. I love the ears. Contrast, I would hype up contrast would be my main thing. Okay. Next, we have Tabitha. It's one of the big circles I got from the dollar store, 12 inches across. I sanded, gessoed, and sanded again. It's acrylic paint, been painting for 5 years, kinda LOL. My goal was surreal scene with Mushroom Lady and a fox meeting each other. You have done that. Do you have a reference? Oh, okay, you do have a reference. Oh, interesting. I like that you have references for these. So, okay, let's save that. Save that. And we've got oh my gosh, you really have a lot of references. To see, this is awesome. You can do surreal work, but you still want references. Oh, I would have got, no, I may not have gotten you to, yeah, I probably would have gotten you to you today, Joseph. So you didn't totally get bumped up. But I also will know where to leave off for next week. So next week will be Ashley. Oh, how cute is he? Okay, move on. Hold on. Moving my screens around. I know there's a better way to do this. I just don't know what it is. I need you, and you. Is that everything? Oops, I think I have the dog again. No, Great Dane. Okay. Beautiful photo, by the way. Well, I like this as a portrait because it's almost, so you know how I was saying with that kitten earlier, like it's super overexposed? It's still, I like that on this with these like definite, this would be another one with ink, would be really cool to just have definite black, definite whites. Like that is gorgeous. Okay. And we've got a little baby fox with a mushroom and wing. You really did your Photoshop. Good job. Pulling these all out. So, okay, I don't even need the mushroom since we've got that over there already. And the photo. Okay. I would do a little bit more on the mushroom, on the heads. I would clean things up. So right now, nope, don't sit on your knee. You're going to do it again. Everything's very rigid. I would clean it up a little bit and get a little bit more. See, look at me in a little bit more. I have to stop with a little bit. Let's layer, new layer. So I would clean a lot of these up. Why are you not showing up? What have I done? Oh, that is why. So instead of being quite, because that being rigid look as much as it was, it's looking a little bit more to me like a cloud than a mushroom. My first thought with that is like atom bomb. So you have to watch, and you may not realize that when you're painting it, because your head, I've done this so many times, because in your head, you're like, I'm painting a mushroom. Obviously, it's a mushroom. Someone else will come up and go, oh, atom bomb. And you didn't even see, I do it all the time myself. So that is something that I definitely would recommend work on, like this going on her head. I'm not a fan of that line. And the reason for that, let's pull her back up, is it changes the shape of her head. I would almost, like, you can see how this comes up. I would continue her head so that it still looks like a head a little bit. Stop saying a little bit, Lisa. More. That isn't actually correct. It would be more, but even more than that. But get that somehow. I'm not sure how I would incorporate that, but right now, the way that this comes down here, maybe that where it's kind of growing on her head needs to follow that more. I don't know. But that is one thing I would certainly make adjustments on, because my first thought is not mushroom. When I look at the top of her head, it would either be jellyfish, which makes sense for me, I'm a marine artist, or atom bomb, which makes sense for me because I'm a jerk. So that is something I would certainly make some adjustments on, making sure that this is coming across as a mushroom, and smoothing some of this out will be part of it. Same thing here. We're going to smooth that mushroom out. I would probably play around a bit more with sketches to see how to, like, her head. If this is the inside of the mushroom here, where is her head? Is it behind? Like, I'm not sure what's going on there. The other thing, let's see, I like the definite blues here. I actually really do like the pink, how you've outlined that. That looks really pretty. I like that a lot. Her nose, like, you've got this great reference photo. Her nose would be a little bit more curved and come down a bit more, so you don't have as big of a gap right here as a bit too big. So I would work on just the, sorry, I'm running my feet on my trash can down there. I should stop doing annoying things like that. It's probably picking up on the microphone, but I would adjust that. I think we've got a fairy ear, so that works. These colors are reminding me of something specific, and I can't pinpoint it, but like it's a candy or something. Like it's very like one of those, like making my brain itch, because what am I thinking of? Okay. I would probably too. So here, if we go by a reference photo, look at the difference here. The distance is really big there. I would pull her eyebrows up more and let her eye, you should be able to see there's a line right here. Connect, keep these lines a little bit close. Stop saying a little bit. Keep them closer together. The eyebrows are really large there. I would definitely make it more like what she is on that. I love this photo. So she has almost a doll face. So I would definitely try to keep that in a bit more. And then when we come over to the little fox, let's look at this guy. I'd probably pull some of the blues too. Some of these really great deeper blues that you've got in here, I would pull those into the shadows a bit more and define. So like when we look at what we did with Joseph's, just by darkening the darks, your lights I think are pretty good. I might make them a little bit lighter, but get some of those darks in a bit more, and that's going to help this little one to feel like he's more a part of the same scene. So pulling that in, and I'm not even sure what the mushroom type solution is for the head there. It's one of those things I would have to sit and sketch for a while, because I really like the concept. I'd like to see you do this one again, because it's a really cool, really fun concept. I love the surreal nature of it, but kind of play the what if game. Well, what if her head came up further? What if the mushroom was taller and she was down here a little bit more so that I could fit that? Or what if it was a tall, thin canvas versus a round canvas? Like the what if game is one I would really play with this, because I think it's a really cool concept that I'd like to see you take further. I like your contrast is beautiful in here with your darks. The atom bomb mushroom, I would definitely play more with there. That is really, it's super interesting. The color of her skin, really nicely done, like real pretty the way you've done the transition. So there's a lot I like about this. I would mainly focus on even what if the mushroom actually came down further on her head? So it was, how people will wear a hat where it's like covering part of it instead of having the inside so you're looking up. What if it was tilted forward? Do spots on it so it's really like definite mushroom. Do some spots on the little guys too so they match. But maybe if he came down, not as far as I just covered too much of her face with it, but maybe if that mushroom cap flipped forward a little bit, it solves the problem of figuring out how to make this work at this angle. So that might be a neat option too to play with. And you'd have to play with that too, because in the sketch, it may not look like a mushroom anymore. It may just look like a spotted hat. You'd have to figure that out. Or what if the mushroom was, instead of being so much of a hat, or not a hat, but like I think that's a part of her head. What if it's an umbrella? The what if game is what I would play with, as I love this concept. I definitely would like to see you do more with it, but those would be my main issues there. Like the way that the mushroom here covers part of it. But so here's the thing, and this is going to be true for every single piece that I've critiqued or gone over today. Just because I'm suggesting something doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to see this and go, that is perfect exactly how it is. That's the 100% thing, that this is I want that painting exactly as it is. And that can be said of every single thing that I critique today. So I'm not the end all opinion. I am aware of that. These are just bits of advice of things we can consider, things to think about to improve our work. But this may just be perfect how it is too. I still don't look at it as a mushroom as much. So that I would pull some of the blues. I didn't talk right there. Pull some of the blues into the little fox guy. I would define that a bit more. Define the mushroom so it looks more. The mushroom to me it's not coming across, I think, enough that it's a part of their head. So that maybe be a way to experiment with different ways to draw it that would get that point across. And that's going to be a problem with surrealism all the time anyway. Whenever we get into surrealism, what is in our head is going to be very like the way someone perceives it may not be exactly the same. It's a very unique thing with surrealism. So I may have the goal of, I'm trying to think of something that I've painted that's kind of different, and I did a mermaid once, and obviously it was a mermaid. It was coming out of a rock. She was half in the water, half out. My dad comes in and looks at it and goes, "Oh, cool whale." What? How are you getting? She has brown wavy hair. I was new to portraits. I wasn't very good, obviously. That's how he mistook my mermaid for. And me and my mom thought he was kidding, and we both kind of laughed. And he's like, "What?" He did not see the mermaid, and she was the whole painting. He just didn't see it. And so when you get into surrealism, we have a bit more of a challenge than someone who's working with realism sometimes, because it doesn't always come across how we intended. So we have to try a few different sketches, a few different ways, because we go into it. I know I'm drawing a mermaid, so to me it automatically looks like a mermaid. My dad is not a stupid man, and it's not like you're looking at him going, "Okay, you're quite the derp." No, that's really how it picked up for him. So it's kind of an interesting thing with art. But anyway, you wanted her head to be growing the mushroom. Play with that. I would play more with that, because right now I would like to see more of the shape of her skull for sure. Like this is down to where it's like half her head would be just chopped. So maybe the growth would go a little bit more up. I don't know, play with sketches. And I'm not saying repaint this one, because this is actually really cool. See how this does with viewers. But I like this concept. I would definitely like to see you do more with that idea and keep playing with it. So very, very cool. So and thank you for everyone who submitted for these. For the live stream, there is no live stream on Friday next week. We're going to do a giveaway. I'm going to be doing in acrylics a zombie Halloween painting. It might go a little bit longer than usual. We'll see. I'm going to try to keep it in the 2 hours, but one way or another, that's getting finished. If I'm there till 2 a.m, Nick and all the mods are going to be gone. So who knows what chat's going to look like at that point. It's not going to take me that long. But point is, we are getting that one done. It might go over a little. I'm probably going to do a base layer and have them pre-drawn out just to save some time there. We'll see how that comes out. But anyway, I will be announcing to enter, you will have to be a member of our MeWe art group. It's free. So anyone who's like, but I don't have MeWe, you could. It's like Facebook, but better. You actually see everything that you follow instead of what they don't have an algorithm. There's no algorithm. You just see what, you can choose to see what recently had a comment or choose to see what was posted chronologically, which is what I do. So Clark Reinhardt said 2 a.m. I'll be there still. It's not going to take me that long, but still, it may. I do have a feeling it's going to be a little bit longer than usual. Hopefully not, but there we go. So that will be Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time, and then I'll be giving that away. Unfortunately, the giveaways for that are just within the U.S. because shipping is a freaking nightmare right now. I still have 2 more giveaways back there. I'm going to ship them all at the same time, make sure I get those out. Anyway, thank you to the moderators. Links for their channels are in the video description. Definitely check that out. They help so much to keep the chat from being full of inappropriate content. What else? If you are in the Dallas area on Halloween weekend, I will be at Aquashella. If you want to get tickets to that, go to aquashella.com. I should have put that in the video description, but you can come hang out and come see me there. I'm going to be doing some live sketching with charcoal. And I think that's all. I will see you guys this weekend on MeWe. I'm sure I'll be posting frog and fish photos and greyhounds and everything else. And we will be back the following, not next Friday, this coming Friday, but that is going to, what day is that? That is November 5th. Oh, how is it already November? Winter is coming and I hate the cold. And the brown of Texas. But November 5th will be the next Friday live stream where we will be continuing with these live streams. I'm going to go take a nap and try not to fall when I pull a cup out of the bottom cupboard again. Thank you guys for joining. I'll see you guys on Tuesday for an edited video and Wednesday for the giveaway live stream. That'll be a fun one. Bye.